It all began with a wallet, forgotten on the edge of a diner booth, half hidden beneath a folded napkin. Most people would have slipped it quietly into their pocket, especially someone living paycheck to paycheck. But Lila Bennett was not most people. That single decision, to walk across the diner floor and return what wasn't hers, would ignite a chain of events she could never have imagined. Because the man who reached out to take back his wallet wasn't just another customer. He was Grayson Hale, a billionaire CEO who hadn't smiled in years, a man haunted by ghosts of the past. And from that moment forward, neither of their lives would ever be the same. The rain had been falling hard that night, streaking the windows of the small-town diner in Vermont where Lila Bennett worked the late shift. The neon sign outside flickered weakly, casting shades of red and blue across the checkered floor. Lila, her blonde hair pulled back into a messy bun, balanced a tray of coffee cups with practiced ease. It was nearly midnight, and only a few stragglers sat scattered at the booths. Truck drivers, lonely travelers, and one man in an expensive charcoal gray suit who looked startlingly out of place. He had eaten little, only sipped at his black coffee while staring out at the rain as though waiting for something, or someone, that wasn't coming. When he finally left, Lila noticed the wallet sitting on the booth's edge. It was sleek, leather, heavy in her hands when she picked it up. Inside, there were crisp $100 bills, a platinum credit card, and a driver's license that read Grayson Hale. She froze at the name, certain she'd heard it before on the news or maybe in a magazine, but she shoved the thought aside. For a brief moment, temptation curled in her chest. Rent was late. Her mother's medical bills sat in a growing stack by her bedside table. A few bills from this wallet could mean food in the fridge or gas in her car. No one would know, but her conscience burned hotter than her desperation. With a deep breath, she called after the man through the glass door, her voice carrying over the rain. "Sir, you left this," she cried, running toward him with the wallet clutched tight in her hand. He turned, eyes shadowed and unreadable, his tailored coat already soaked. Their hands brushed as she placed the wallet into his palm. His gaze lingered on her for a second longer than necessary. Surprised, maybe even searching. "Thank you," he said, his voice low and rough, before disappearing into the night. Lila thought that was the end of it, but she was wrong. 2 days later, the bell over the diner door jingled. Lila looked up from behind the counter, expecting the usual crowd. Instead, there he was again, the man in the suit looking out of place among the formica tables and laminated menus. Grayson Hale. He slid into the same booth as before, ordering nothing but coffee once more. Yet his eyes didn't wander out the window this time. They followed her. Lila felt self-conscious beneath his gaze, wondering why a man like him would return to a diner in a town this small. She delivered his coffee, forcing a polite smile. "I wanted to thank you again," he said quietly. Most people wouldn't have returned that wallet. His tone was direct, but beneath it was something else, a weight she couldn't quite name. "I didn't think twice about it," Lila replied, shrugging. "It wasn't mine." She tried to keep her voice light, but she saw the faint flicker of something in his expression. Gratitude? Sadness? She couldn't tell. He studied her for a moment before saying, "Do you mind if I ask your name?" "Lila," she said, and when she asked for his, though she already knew, he hesitated. "Grayson." He didn't add the last name. She didn't push. But the air between them shifted, a thread of connection sparking from something so simple. Neither of them knew it yet, but this was the start of a fragile bond that would change both their worlds. Grayson returned again the following week, then again after that. Each time he ordered coffee, sometimes a slice of pie he barely touched, and sat for hours. At first, Lila thought he was just lonely, maybe traveling through. But soon she realized he wasn't passing through at all. He was staying. They began to talk in little fragments, short exchanges that slowly grew longer. He asked about the town, about the weather, about the diner's history. Lila told him bits about her life, how she'd grown up here, how she was saving money to study nursing, how she worked doubles because her mother's health wasn't good. One night, as she wiped down the counter, she noticed his hands shaking slightly as he held his coffee mug. His eyes seemed far away, locked on some memory that pained him. She almost asked, but stopped herself. Instead, she said softly, "Coffee's on the house tonight." He looked up at her then, and for the first time his lips twitched into the smallest smile. That smile, fleeting as it was, planted something fragile inside her chest. Lila found herself thinking about him after shifts, wondering why a man who looked like he belonged in skyscrapers and boardrooms chose to spend his nights in a run-down diner. But there was something in his presence that felt human, real, not polished or scripted. Grayson, for his part, found himself drawn back to the diner more than he wanted to admit. It wasn't the coffee or the pie. It was her. The way she spoke to him without deference, without fear, without the guarded glances most people gave him when they realized who he was. To Lila, he wasn't a billionaire, wasn't a headline. He was just a man who'd left his wallet behind. Late one night, when most of the customers had gone, he asked quietly, "Do you ever feel like you're carrying too much alone?" The question startled her. "All the time," she admitted, meeting his gaze. There was a vulnerability in both their voices, like they had peeled back a layer neither meant to expose. For the first time in a long while, Grayson felt understood. The autumn wind carried a chill as the days grew shorter. One evening, Grayson lingered in the diner after everyone else had gone. Lila stacked chairs, humming softly to herself. He found himself listening, the tune unfamiliar but comforting. "You should be home by now," he said gently, surprising even himself. She looked at him and smiled faintly. "This is home most days," she replied, shrugging. "My mom, she needs care. I can't afford to cut hours." Grayson's chest tightened. He recognized that sense of sacrifice, of carrying burdens silently. For him, it was grief for his late wife, buried beneath layers of responsibility. For her, it was the weight of survival. Two different pains, but both heavy. For the first time in years, he wanted to help someone, not through money, but by simply being there. It became routine. Grayson would arrive at the diner, and Lila would already know his order. He started trying the food, burgers, fries, blueberry pie, and teased her about always recommending the cheapest items on the menu. She teased him back about his polished shoes not belonging on greasy diner floors. But beneath the banter, something deeper brewed. "One rainy night," he confessed quietly, "my wife passed away 2 years ago. Since then, I've been drifting." The words hung heavy in the air. Lila didn't rush to comfort him. She simply sat across the booth, resting her hand lightly on his for a moment. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice steady. "That kind of pain never really leaves, but it doesn't mean you have to carry it forever." For the first time in months, he felt a sliver of hope crack through his grief. As weeks passed, whispers began in the town. People noticed the suited man who frequented the diner, noticed how Lila's face lit up when he walked in. She ignored the rumors, brushing them off with a laugh, but inside she worried. What could a man like him possibly see in her? One night, as she scrubbed dishes, she asked him, "Why here? Why me? You could be anywhere in the world." Grayson paused, his gaze steady. "Because here I feel like I can breathe, and because you remind me that not everyone is chasing something. You're just real." Her throat tightened at his honesty. For years, she had been invisible to most people. Now, this man, this powerful, untouchable figure, saw her. The more time they spent together, the more their walls began to crack. Grayson asked about her dreams, and she admitted she'd once wanted to study abroad in London, but had to stay behind to care for her mother. He listened intently, as though her dreams mattered. In return, he told her about the company he ran, though he kept details vague. He spoke of the pressure, the loneliness of boardrooms filled with people who saw only his money, not his heart. One night, as the diner closed, he asked, "If you could leave tomorrow, would you?" She smiled sadly. "Not until my mom's okay, but someday, maybe." It was the first time Grayson felt an urge to change someone's future, not with wealth, but with quiet support. But not everyone welcomed Grayson's presence. One afternoon, as Lila wiped down tables, her manager pulled her aside. "That man, he's trouble. Don't get caught up. Guys in suits don't stay in towns like this." The words stung, but Lila knew they weren't entirely wrong. Still, her gut told her Grayson was different. That night, when she saw him again, she tried to create distance, seating him farther away. But when he left, she felt an emptiness she couldn't explain. And the next evening, when he didn't come at all, the silence was unbearable. 3 days passed without a sighting of him. Lila told herself it didn't matter. He was just a customer. Yet when the bell above the door finally rang and he walked in, something inside her unknotted. "Where have you been?" she asked, trying to sound casual. He smiled faintly. "Meetings. A reminder of the world I usually live in." Then, more quietly, "But I missed this place." Her heart skipped, and though she tried to hide it, she realized something terrifying. She was falling for him. Grayson began sharing more of himself. How he lost his wife in a car accident. How he buried himself in work afterward. How money felt like a prison instead of freedom. In return, Lila told him about her father leaving when she was young, about nights spent wondering if she would ever escape the small town. One evening, when her shift ended, they walked outside together. The stars stretched wide over the countryside. For the first time, he laughed, really laughed, at something she said. The sound startled her but warmed her heart. That night, she lay awake realizing she hadn't just returned a wallet. She'd opened a door to something neither of them expected, but reality pressed closer. Grayson's assistant called during one of their diner nights, reminding him of a board vote he was avoiding. Lila overheard, realizing with shock who he truly was. Grayson Hale, billionaire CEO, the man whose name had been plastered across financial magazines. When he returned to the booth, she confronted him. "Why didn't you tell me who you were?" He looked at her, guilt in his eyes. "Because I wanted you to see me. Not the headlines, not the money, just me." Her heart wrestled between betrayal and understanding. She didn't answer, just walked away to refill another table's coffee. The days after felt strained. Lila kept conversations polite but distant, unsure if she could trust him. Grayson, however, didn't retreat. He came back each night, sometimes waiting silently for hours, never pressing. Finally, one night, she sat across from him and asked, "Why me? You could have anyone." His voice was steady. "Because you're the first person in years who saw me as more than a name. You gave me back something I thought I'd lost." Slowly, her walls began to lower again. Lila's mother, Evelyn, noticed the change in her daughter. One night, as Lila tucked a blanket over her frail form, Evelyn smiled knowingly. "He makes you glow," she whispered. Lila blushed, shaking her head. "It's nothing like that, Mom. He's complicated." "But so are you," Evelyn replied softly. "And sometimes complicated finds its match." Her mother's words echoed in her heart, leaving Lila restless. Winter snow blanketed the town, and the diner glowed with holiday lights. One night, Grayson arrived with a small wrapped box. "It's nothing big," he said nervously, sliding it across the table. Inside was a simple silver bracelet, delicate but elegant. "For honesty," he explained, for returning something I didn't even know I'd lost. Tears pricked her eyes. "I can't accept this," she whispered. "Yes, you can," he said firmly, "because it's not about money. It's about gratitude." For the first time, she let herself accept a gift, because she knew it was given with heart, not wealth. But just as their connection deepened, trouble brewed. A local journalist caught wind of Grayson Hale spending nights in a small-town diner. Rumors spread. Was he hiding a mistress? Running from scandal? One morning, Lila woke to see her name online, her diner mentioned. Pictures of her serving coffee splashed across gossip sites. Panic rose in her chest. When Grayson arrived that evening, she shoved the paper at him. "This is why we can't do this. I can't be your scandal." Pain flashed in his eyes, but instead of leaving, he said, "Then let me make it right." Grayson arranged for the articles to be pulled down, but the damage was done. Lila felt exposed, her privacy invaded. Customers whispered, friends asked questions she couldn't answer. She considered quitting the diner altogether. But when she saw Grayson walk in, looking more tired than she'd ever seen him, something in her softened. "I don't care what they say," he told her quietly. "I only care what you think." Her heart knew the truth. She cared too, more than she should. Evelyn's health began to decline further, and Lila found herself stretched thin, working, caregiving, worrying. One evening, she broke down in the diner kitchen, tears spilling as she tried to keep going. Grayson found her there, her hands trembling over a stack of dishes. Without hesitation, he pulled her into an embrace. "You don't have to do this alone," he whispered. And for the first time, she let herself cry in someone's arms, realizing she didn't have to always be strong. Spring arrived, bringing new warmth. Grayson invited Lila and Evelyn to the city for a weekend, his world of high rises, art galleries, and rooftop views. Lila hesitated, overwhelmed by the thought. But when Evelyn insisted, "Go, sweetheart, live a little," she agreed. In the city, Lila marveled at the life he led, the luxury, the power. Yet what struck her most was how out of place he looked there, compared to the peace he carried in the diner with her. It made her realize, perhaps he needed her world more than she needed his. One evening on that trip, they stood on his balcony, the skyline glittering below. He turned to her, his voice raw. "I don't want to keep running between two worlds. I want to build one, with you." Her breath caught. The enormity of what he was asking scared her, yet warmed her all at once. "Grayson, I don't know if I belong in your world." He shook his head. "Then I'll choose yours." Her heart trembled, knowing he meant it. Evelyn passed away quietly a few months later, leaving Lila devastated. Grayson stood by her through every step, through the funeral, the silence after, the nights she thought she would break. In her grief, she tried to push him away, not wanting to drown him in her sorrow. But he refused to leave. "You stood by me when I was broken," he reminded her. "Now let me stand by you." It was in that moment she realized, this wasn't just a passing connection. It was love, steady and enduring. Months later, the diner bustled as usual, but everything had changed. Lila now managed the place with confidence, and Grayson, though still CEO, had found a rhythm that allowed him to be present. One evening, he slid into their usual booth, pulling out a small velvet box. Her heart stopped as he opened it. "Lila Bennett," he said softly, "you returned a wallet and gave me back my life. Will you marry me?" Tears filled her eyes, joy and disbelief colliding. "Yes," she whispered, her voice breaking. And just like that, in the most ordinary of places, two extraordinary lives intertwined forever. Proof that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness carry the power to rewrite a future.